How's your self-care these days? We're talking about self-care basics today, talking about our personal progress and the long-term effects of your self-care. You're listening to Heartbeat from the Heart of Hospice. I'm Jerry Fenter, here with Helen Bauer.
Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, we're here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care. Because we know how busy life can get, Heartbeat is designed to give you helpful information in a bite-sized format. The Heart of Hospice is partnering with end-of-life educator Barbara Carnes, author of the Little Blue Book, to present a talk at the California Hospice and Palliative Care Association Annual Conference coming up June 6th through the 10th in Orange, California. The conference theme is Back to the Basics at the Bedside and will feature talks on hospice eligibility, documentation, and a 2-day LNEC pre-conference. Visit calhospice.org to register. Be sure to tell them you heard about it on the Heart of Hospice podcast, and we'll see you there.
We haven't talked about self-care in a while, and we felt like it was time to go back to the basics and talk about self-care again.
Why haven't we talked about self-care?
Oh, there's been so many other things to talk about, but it's time. It's time.
I think maybe it's past time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. Now, we had often done what we called our best and worst.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
Why not, Jerry?
Because I don't want to.
I don't know that I've ever heard you stutter like that. That's interesting.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about going back to self-care basics.
Right. I think we all sort of need a reset.
Oh, I think the pandemic has created a need for a reset.
Can we just call it the stupid pandemic? Because it totally derailed my self-care. I'll take responsibility for that. I let it throw off my self-care. I had some good things that worked out well, but my self-care worst was pretty dang lousy.
Yeah, I have to admit, it's been pretty bad. Let's just go with that.
Okay, so what do we know about self-care? Let's go back, like you're saying, to the basics. Self-care has to nurture the whole self. We are complicated human beings, a combination of mind, body, and spirit. Your self-care has to take care of all three of those components.
Right. So create a self-care plan that's not just a workout for the body, but create a self-care plan that's also going to nurture your mind, your spirit. And it doesn't have to do it all at once. You may have to actually develop something that somehow affects all three of them, but create something that's going to be what you like. Mm-hmm. So here's some things we want to remind you about. Self-care has to be affordable, first of all.
Right. We're not talking about once a week you go and you get an hour-and-a-half massage and a mud pack that costs you $250. If you can do that, awesome. Go right ahead. But for most people, that's not a real thing.
No, so make it affordable. Make it enjoyable.
Right. If it's not fun, you're not going to keep doing it.
Exactly. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be work, and it doesn't hurt a little bit because, I don't like working out, but I do it because it's good for me, and I feel better when I do it.
Well, and you may not be just super, super adept with it when you first start, like a meditation practice, right? You may only get a minute in before you start thinking about your laundry list, your grocery list, things like that. But most things like that, if you want to be skilled, it takes a little while to develop it. So say you want to sing or learn to play the piano or the guitar, or you want to paint as part of feeding your spirit, right? You may be drawing stick figures. I can't draw worth a darn. So that was the first example that came to my mind. So it doesn't have to be great, right? You don't have to be a professional, but you do have to enjoy it.
Right. And then make it sustainable. In other words, don't try to do something that's out of your reach completely. Do something that you're going to be able to do over the long term. Right.
So if it's a huge time commitment and you have 3 kids at home and your mother lives down the street and you help her out at her house, don't take on some self-care that's going to take you an hour when you don't have that time.
Right. So make it sustainable. The Heart of Hospice is partnering with end-of-life educator Barbara Carnes of BK Books to present a talk at the California Hospice and Palliative Care Association Conference coming up June the 6th through the 10th. Barbara is the author of Gone From My Sight, known by hospice professionals as the Little Blue Book. The CHAPCA conference will feature a 2-day pre-conference on June the 6th and 7th featuring the End-of-Life Nursing Education Consortium. LNEC provides training in palliative care so attendees can teach this essential information to nursing students, practicing nurses, and other healthcare professionals. CHAPCA has invited 3 dynamic LNEC certified speakers to present the LNEC curriculum Communication to attendees: Bonnie Morgan, Missy Moore, and Carol Javins. General conference sessions June the 8th through the 10th will feature talks on hospice eligibility for patients with Alzheimer's and dementia, cardiac and pulmonary diagnoses, and documentation for painting the picture of the terminal patient. Register for the CHAPCA conference coming up June the 6th through the 10th by visiting calhospice.org and tell them you heard about it on the Heart of Hospice podcast.
Okay, actionable. It has to be realistic. You know, I'm not going to learn to sing opera, mainly because I can't sing that well, but it has to be actionable. It has to be something realistic that you could actually do.
Sure. So make it something that's going to fit you and what you want to do and what you have time to do and all those things. So make sure it's something that's actionable. Make sure it's something that's flexible.
Why is that so important?
Because we know that we can set a goal and say, I'm going to work out 5 days this week. And lo and behold, on one evening when you're planning to work out, there's something that you need to do with your family and you don't get to it. Be flexible. It's okay. But don't let that one day derail what you have planned. Go ahead and take that one night off, that one evening from your workout. But don't let it stop you. Go ahead and do the other ones as you can, but be flexible.
So let's talk a little bit more about the flexible one.
Okay.
I know we've got a big list: affordable, enjoyable, sustainable, actionable. But I think flexible is where we hit some big roadblocks during the SP, the stupid pandemic. I think that being able to be flexible with your self-care is huge. So if you think mind, body, and spirit, okay, body is your workout. They closed the gyms. And we weren't supposed to be near each other, right? We weren't supposed to be in groups. Okay? Spirit, if you were a member of a community of faith, if you had corporate worship, most of those places went online. They closed those gatherings down. We didn't have access to that. Mind, maybe you were in school. Maybe you went to the library. Maybe you went to a book club, a chess club, something like that to engage your mind. But all those social activities were taken away from us. Being able to flex your self-care is huge. I think that is probably the lesson I have learned more than anything over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has taught all of us how to be flexible. Oh.
Right. Unfortunately, I had to tank right before that happened.
Right. Okay, and last of all, we want to remind you to be accountable. Now, I know this isn't...
What are you looking at me for?
You really need an accountability partner.
Yes.
We want to encourage that. But be accountable. So you set a goal for yourself, and if you are trying to do this solo, unless you are one of those really well-disciplined people...
Self-starters.
Yeah, even
we
self-starters.
don't even like you.
Even self-starters need a kick in the behind every once in a while to get going. So accountability becomes important too, because it's easy to set those goals and then go, I don't feel like getting up out of bed this morning because it's cold outside and it's raining and I just don't want to do this today.
Oh, so I just had an idea for your accountability partner. If you're an accountability partner, it's not just getting the other person there and knowing someone is waiting for you so that you have to meet them. You've agreed to do this activity or get the supplies together or whatever. But then when you've done it, whatever small win that you've had, you finished the workout, you read the book together, anything like that, you've enjoyed music together, you had somebody teach you something, you get to celebrate that small win with your accountability partner. I hadn't thought about it that way before.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. And it also helps to celebrate the wins. Let's just be honest. Celebrate the wins, but do it in a healthy way.
Right. We're not saying just because you had a good workout that you should eat a piece of cake.
No.
You always want to reward yourself with something healthy. So accountability, having an accountability partner makes all the difference in the world.
It really does. Okay, so let's talk about some of the long-term effects of self-care.
Okay. The more you make it a habit, the easier it is to maintain it. The longer you do it, the easier it is to maintain. Meditation is one of those things for sure.
Yes.
If you practice mindfulness or meditation, and we're just using that as an example because your self-care can look like anything you want it to look like. Maybe you enjoy dog grooming or horseback riding or hiking or knitting, whatever activity works for you that helps to take care of your whole self. It can look like whatever you want it to.
Right.
But the more you make it a habit, the easier it is to maintain that and to keep going with it.
Right. So if it's part of your routine and it's a priority, it really becomes easier to flex. We talked about it being flexible.
Right.
So when your needs change, you can flex with that then and do what you need to do, but still come back to those routines again. So it's a matter of really staying dedicated to it.
So, but if it's a routine, if you've got this habit that's ingrained, you go to the gym every day after work, or, you meet somebody to play chess every Saturday morning. If it's such a habit, how is it easier to flex it?
Because you know that if there is a time when you need to change that routine, you'll come back to it again. It's easier to come back to it when you've made it into a habit.
And I think also you recognize the value of those things. And without them, I know for me, without certain self-care habits that I have, I feel that there's something missing. I feel off balance. I truly do. And that's what we know about mind, body, spirit care. It has to be balanced.
Okay, so finally, another long-term effect from good, healthy self-care is that those cumulative effects of healthy self-care results in, one, reduced chronic illness,
Yes.
improved quality of life, and just satisfaction with life in general.
Happiness.
Yes, happiness, joy, and contentment.
Nice. Okay, so here are our tips from what we know. Start small.
Definitely.
Make your goals attainable. If you set yourself up to fail, you won't be able to make it affordable, enjoyable, sustainable, actionable, flexible.
Right. So keep in mind, too, when it's not fun anymore, don't quit. Just try something different.
Right. You can't think of it as a failure, but if you don't like something that you've taken up, dump it.
Right.
And I will tell you, so here's an example. I tried to learn to crochet. It's awesome. People make beautiful things. My niece tried to teach me. She's so gifted, but she's right-handed. I'm left-handed. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And you know what? I gave up. I gave her the knitting needles and the crochet yarn and all that stuff. And I said, here, you take this. So I don't have to look at it anymore. It just didn't work for me.
Right. So if it's not working for you, if it's not fun, find something else. But don't quit. Don't just give up on self-care. Find something that works for you.
Right. And then your accountability partner needs to be a good match with similar interests and I would say a similar work ethic when it comes to self-care.
Right. Definitely. Because it really does help to have a good, well-matched partner so that you're not pulling each other in the wrong directions.
Right. And your spouse or your life partner might not be the best person to do that with because it's easy to be, and I'm guilty of this, it's easy to be a nag and keep it from being fun.
Yeah, it really needs to be somebody besides your spouse or your significant other. That's what I would recommend. So there's our tips, and we hope that this has encouraged you to take back your self-care. Take back control of your self-care and get back to the basics again. If you've kind of gotten off track, it's okay, but it's time to come back now. Let's get back on track with our self-care and get back to the basics again.
Thanks for listening to Heartbeat from the Heart of Hospice. I'm Helen Bauer with Jerry Finter. Because we know your hospice journey is 24/7, you can always find us at theheartofhospice.com. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Please take a minute to leave a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts.
If you'd like to connect with us, you can send us an email to host@theheartofhospice.com. And you can also connect with us on social media. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.